Hello, Wake Up New Zealand, Karasaki speaking. Well, just a point here as we're coming up to elections that I want people to be aware of. Winston Peters. Well, back in 2018, I opposed the UN Global Compact of Migration for the reasons being that mental health services were actually failing, would take a while to actually even recover, and it hasn't yet. We had a shortage of school teachers. The health system was looking really bad, and we had a lot of people waiting on the housing list. And I didn't think it was right in the New Zealanders' best interest to actually be signing a compact of migration, UN compact of migration, that Peters actually signed. So that was my objection, and I put a 70-page submission into the committee about the select committee about that. But I want to go a bit further on this, because since then I have found out at the very same time in Marrakech in Morocco, as this UN Global Compact was about to be signed, to be introduced, what was being signed also was a mayor's migration declaration. And that was introduced by the fifth meeting of the Mayor's Migration Council. Now, what we're talking about here is where mayors across the world, particularly C40 cities, and we've got Auckland as a C40 city, but it's not just C40 cities, it's that local mayors would take on the infrastructure, etc., to accommodate mass migration. So it would be down to the regional councils like Auckland Council. And that's what that was about. But Winston Peters didn't tell us about that. Our country's already suffering. We can hardly look after our own, and this is what's happening. Do you think those pack and stacks out there that are built right up to the borderline of another person's property without consent being built 3 stories high, who do you think they're for? They're not for people who can't afford a house. They're not for Mary and Pacifica. Who do you think they're for? Come on, people. Wake up. So that's what Winston Peters is not telling you. And the other thing here is, in 2018, December 2018, he went to Crown Law Office and he says, don't worry, people, it's okay. It's a non-binding agreement. Who should worry? Non-binding means it can be used by the judicial as a reference point. But not only that, non-binding UN agreements, of which we've got 1,900 of, well, the UN Compact on Migration, just like the UN Agenda 2030, what it does, it sits, when the government agrees to it, it sits in a place called where it sits in a place called soft law, very comfortably, where it can be advantageously, quickly moved upon, where it can be entered into domestic policy real quickly without you knowing it. And there's no debate around that in Parliament because they all agree on it. I kid you not. So we need to talk about these things. Matt King, why are you not talking about it? You've been in there. You know about this. You also know that Ardern, UN Agenda 2030, the Great Reset, Klaus Schwab's Global Redesign of 2010, all one and the same. Fourth Industrial Revolution, all one and the same. And you've got that on the Auckland City Council website. That is your Agenda 2030 that New Zealand adopted, a non-binding agreement, and there it sat in soft law until Ardern introduced it into domestic policy, where it came binding, legally binding, and acted upon. And this is what's happening right now. Your sustainability, your ESGs, your transgender, human rights that are supposed to protect human rights for people like me and you, they're actually going against you. They don't fight for parental rights. They're not standing up for your parental rights. Come on, people. So this is what's happening. So I wanted to say this before the election comes up, because Winston Peters is not being completely honest here. He is, when I hear someone say, oh, you've got to forgive some of them. What? Yeah, we could forgive him for actually signing the UN Global Compact on Migration, even though I opposed it. I could forgive him. I do not forgive him for not talking about all these mayors being put in that place to act upon migration. He knew that. So what they did is this Mayors Migration Council, they brought together the UN Global Compact and the UN New York Refugees Compact from 2016, put them together, and here's what you got. The Mayors Migration Declaration, signed at the same time, December 2018, as the UN Global Compact in Marrakesh, the same place. Wake up, New Zealand. See what's going on right under your own nose that you don't know about.